it certainly goes back a number of centuries in terms of what the role of the artist actually is. I mean, you could even talk about Plato in the Republic banning the poet, you know, and whether the poet will tell the truth or will the poet tell lies. I mean, so this is a very old dispute between the state or the governing entity and the arts. One of the roles that art can play, and particularly music, is a social critic, that it actually exposes the hypocrisies and the falsehoods of those who claim to be serving the public interest. And the threat that a popular artist can pose, you know, whether it be ridiculing, mocking the authorities, challenging them directly, and demanding on behalf of the populace that they justify their actions. I mean, this is what, you know, the whole romantic movement, the whole idea of the rebel artist, which in my generation was you know, in the 60s, was paramount. I mean, the whole idea that music itself was subversive and that music was capable of dethroning emperors. Blue jeans and rock and roll brought down the Berlin Wall, you know, and that kind of idea was a very powerful one even in recent times. I think that more recently, in the last 20 or 30 years, there's been a very definite and concerted effort to defang music. Not by banning it, but just the opposite, by making so much of it that the world is saturated with sound, that it's constantly being played everywhere. You're hearing it wherever you turn, whether you want to hear it or not. We're being bombarded with, you know, sonic fast food. It's like, you know, McDonald's or something, but it's in the form of music, in the sense that you hear these things on the you know, the phone while you're waiting for your dentist. You hear them in the supermarket, you hear them at the airport, you hear it everywhere. You're hearing music or muzak. It's programmed, obviously, and it's programmed very scientifically to create certain moods and create certain atmospheres and ambience that whoever is running that particular space considers appropriate. But that is the opposite of prohibition, but it achieves the same effect. You know, it's the opposite of clamping down on something and forbidding somebody from performing or from playing, but it has the exact same effect of defanging, taking the bite out of music that has a social criticism to make. I was just in a class last night where the question of this question of whether or not music could still play a radical role or a critical role in today's politics. And my answer is yes, it certainly can, but that it's not going to be allowed in the sense that it would, you might say that in the 60s it was actually promoted to a certain extent. In other words, you could have a group like Crosby, Stills and Nash who were extremely successful singing a song like Ohio after the Kent State killings, you know, when the National Guard shot 4 students at Kent State, and Crosby, Stills and Nash respond with a song called Ohio that deliberately criticizes Nixon and so on and so forth. Those conditions, the conditions that made that kind of thing possible, don't prevail. You know, at this point, you're going to see a lot more of the sort of narcissism and me, you know, that kind of message coming across, drowning out the others that are still trying to use music as a means of changing the world or enlightening people.